Welcome to a journey into darkness, where ancient myths gave birth to modern nightmares. In this video we reveal 10 monsters so terrifying, their legends echo through centuries, inspiring some of the most chilling horror tales ever told. From bloodthirsty beasts that haunted forgotten civilizations to creatures that still stalk our imaginations, these are not just stories, they're the roots of terror itself. Whether it's vampires, werewolves, or shape-shifting demons, their origin lies in something far older and far more disturbing. Dare to discover the monsters that sparked legends and nightmares. This is 10 monsters of myth so terrifying they inspired legends of horror. Lamia, the cursed queen of nightmares. In the haunted corners of Greek mythology, beyond the Olympians' shining thrones and heroic epics, dwells a creature of sorrow and horror, Lamia. Once a beautiful queen, Lamia was cursed by Hera, the queen of the gods, and transformed into a terrifying child-eating monster. This tale, soaked in grief, divine wrath, and nightmarish hunger, has echoed through millennia, reshaping itself in vampire lore, the succubus myth, and demon legends across cultures. This is her story, a descent from royalty into monstrosity, shaped by jealousy, madness, and a hunger that never ends. A Queen's Fall, Lamia before the curse. Lamia's origins are rooted in Libya, an ancient land shrouded in mystique on the edge of the known Greek world. Ancient poets and mythographers described her as a queen or princess of extraordinary beauty, daughter of Belus, a mythical king often associated with the god Baal. She may have ruled over a fertile, prosperous land, commanding admiration and love from her people, and from the gods. That beauty attracted Zeus, the all-powerful king of the Olympians. As he did with many mortal women, Zeus pursued Lamia and seduced her. Some accounts suggest Lamia willingly entered into this union, while others hint at compulsion or divine coercion. Regardless, their affair bore children, divine mortal hybrids, born of lust and vulnerability. This was the beginning of her doom. Hera's wrath, the curse that created a monster. Hera, Zeus's wife and the goddess of marriage, was infamously vengeful toward her husband's lovers and their children. In many myths she persecuted them mercilessly, Semele, Io, Alcmene, and many others. Lamia was no exception. Consumed by jealousy and rage, Hera murdered Lamia's children. Some say she stole them in the night, others say she drove Lamia to kill them herself. But Hera didn't stop at death. She cursed Lamia not just to mourn but to become something monstrous. Hera's spell transformed her into a creature tormented by unrelenting grief and madness, a demon with a craving for the flesh of children. In a twisted form of poetic justice, Lamia was condemned to hunt and devour the very thing she had lost. In some versions, Hera further cursed Lamia with sleeplessness, so that she could never escape her own sorrow. Later retellings claim that the gods, perhaps even Zeus himself, granted Lamia the ability to remove her eyes so she could find temporary relief from the torment, closing her eyes to her sins and her pain. The monstrous form, shapeshifter and seductress. Ancient and medieval sources describe Lamia with a grotesque duality, part woman, part beast. Over time, artists and poets portrayed her with serpentine features, a woman's upper body fused with the tail of a snake. In some tales she resembles a vampire or succubus, beautiful, seductive, but deadly, especially toward children and young men. What makes Lamia especially terrifying is her ability to shapeshift. She can appear as a beautiful woman, luring her victims with charm and grace. But beneath the surface lies a demon whose hunger is insatiable. This ability to switch between forms, between beauty and horror, has deeply influenced vampiric archetypes, where sensual allure masks monstrous intent. The philosopher Philostratus, in Life of Apollonius of Tyana, 3rd century CE, tells of a Lamia who seduced a young man and planned to devour him, only to be exposed and driven away by the wise sage Apollonius. In this version, Lamia is a predator of young men, a demon disguised as a courtesan feeding on youth and life force. Vampiric roots and folkloric evolution. Lamia's legend planted seeds that grew into vampire mythology in both the classical and medieval imagination. Her appetite for children, combined with her seductive facade, made her a symbol of predatory femininity, a creature who could take pleasure in destruction, fueled by sorrow and rage. Unlike traditional Greek monsters such as the Hydra or Cyclops, Lamia's power lay not in brute force but in manipulation, beauty, and cunning. This archetype of the beautiful demoness would evolve in multiple traditions. In Byzantine folklore, the Lamia was believed to suck blood from children, especially at night. Mothers were warned to protect infants from her. In medieval Europe, Lamia-like beings emerged as succubi, female demons who seduced men in their sleep, draining them of vitality. In Slavic and Balkan lore, similar creatures, like the Mora or Strigoi, preyed on children and the weak, creeping in through cracks and windows at night. Even in Christian demonology, Lamia's traits can be seen in Lilith, another female demon figure associated with child death and sexual independence. Through centuries, the name Lamia became a generic label for female night monsters, much like how vampire or witch would later be used. Symbolism, grief, rage, and the demonization of women. At the heart of Lamia's myth is deep psychological symbolism. She is a mother whose children are stolen from her, a victim of divine punishment. But rather than being allowed to mourn or be redeemed, she is twisted into a monster, reflecting how ancient societies often demonized grief, especially female rage. The loss of her children becomes a curse, her sorrow weaponized into a hunger for other children. Her transformation is not just physical but spiritual, a descent into despair so total that it consumes others. In this way, Lamia represents several intertwined ideas. Grief without closure. Her inability to sleep or forget traps her in endless mourning. The fear of female autonomy. Her sexuality, when unbounded by patriarchal norms, is portrayed as dangerous and lethal. The horror of maternal loss. Perhaps the most haunting part of her story is not what she becomes, but what was done to her. Her monstrosity begins with heartbreak. Lamia in art, literature, and legacy. Lamia's chilling allure captivated artists and writers long after the fall of ancient Greece. John Keats, in his 1819 poem Lamia, romanticizes the myth, portraying her as a tragic figure capable of love. In his version, Lamia transforms into a woman to love a mortal man, only to have their happiness destroyed when her true form is revealed. The story becomes a meditation on illusion, love, and the price of beauty. William Blake, Herbert James Draper, and other artists painted her as a sensual but sorrowful being, half snake, half woman, hovering between eroticism and horror. In modern times, Lamia appears in literature, video games, and even films, usually as a vampire-like being or a powerful seductress. In J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, Lamia is referenced in the Fantastic Beasts universe as a serpentine creature. Video games such as Final Fantasy and Castlevania often feature Lamia-inspired characters, hybrid beings that use charm and illusion to defeat enemies. These modern reinterpretations often strip away the sorrow and focus on the horror, but the tragedy remains at the core. The legacy of Lamia, mother, monster myth. Lamia's myth endures because it reflects some of our deepest fears: the loss of children, the transformation of beauty into horror, and the demonization of female rage. Unlike other monsters who begin as threats, Lamia begins as a victim. Her monstrosity is not chosen. It is thrust upon her, shaped by divine cruelty and emotional collapse. In her tale, we see echoes of real historical fears. The fear of mothers turned mad with grief, especially in times when child mortality was tragically high. The fear of women's beauty and sexuality, seen as both desirable and dangerous. The fear of the unknown night, where something might slip in and steal what we love most. Lamia's story also challenges the simplistic good versus evil dichotomy. She is not evil for the sake of it. Her hunger, her pain, her horror are the legacy of divine injustice. That complexity gives her myth a timeless, gothic depth. The queen who haunts the night. Once a queen, Lamia became the thing that haunted children's dreams and whispered warnings in the dark. She was cursed not because of what she did, but because of who she loved, and because a jealous goddess refused to let her mourn in peace. Her tale is a tragic one, soaked in blood, tears, and shadow. It reminds us how the line between human and monster can blur, how grief can distort, and how myth can immortalize sorrow. Lamia lives on, in vampire stories, in lullabies turned nightmares, in demon lore, and in the silent cry of a mother with empty arms. The death bat, a god of night, blood, and sacrifice. In the dark corridors of ancient mythology, where gods are cruel and monsters divine, there exists a figure both feared and revered, the death bat. This nightmarish god, a creature of shadow and blood, is said to dwell between life and death, feasting on the hearts of men and haunting dreams as a winged terror. Half bat, half man, and all horror, the death bat isn't just a mythological relic. His legacy flutters through time, shaping the vampires, night demons, and bat monsters of modern folklore and horror fiction. But where does this creature come from? What culture birthed him? And why has his terrifying image endured for so long? Let us plunge into the mythic darkness and unravel the tale of the death bat. Origins in Mesoamerican lore, Kamisats and the House of Bats. The death bat, as many scholars recognize him today, is rooted in the terrifying deity known as Kamisats, a bat god from Maya mythology, particularly associated with the Kitsch, Maya and their sacred text, the Popol Vuh. In this epic tale, Kamisats, death bat, or snatch bat, was a bloodthirsty god residing in the House of Bats, Zatsalaha, one of the deadly trials that the hero twins Hunahpu and Xbalanque were forced to endure in the underworld realm of Xibalba. Kamisats was more than a mere bat. He had the body of a man and the face of a terrifying bat, complete with razor-sharp fangs and blood-soaked claws. He was not only a creature of the night but an agent of death, specifically connected to human sacrifice, decapitation, and bloodletting rituals. In the Popol Vuh, Kamisats decapitates one of the hero twins, a symbolic act highlighting his connection to death and spiritual testing. For the Maya, the bat wasn't just a symbol of the night, it was a guardian of the underworld, a harbinger of death, and an eater of souls. The caves where bats lived were believed to be entrances to Xibalba, the Maya underworld. Kamisats, as the embodiment of this bat symbolism, was more than a monster. He was a god of darkness and blood. A god who demanded hearts. Unlike some deities who ruled over agriculture or war, Kamisats and his counterparts were gods of sacrifice. They thrived on offerings, not of gold but of human life, specifically human hearts and blood. This puts Kamisats in line with other deities in Mesoamerican pantheons such as Huitzilopochtli, Aztec god of the sun and war, who required human hearts to continue the cycle of the cosmos. But Kamisats was not just a god demanding sacrifice, he was the executioner. His wings carried him through the night skies, sniffing out the scent of blood, drawn to the throbbing beat of a mortal's heart. In some interpretations, Kamisats did not wait for offerings. He took what he wanted. Priests who wore bat masks during ceremonies believed they were channeling his spirit. Some rituals even involved bloodletting through the tongue or genitals to simulate the pain and sacrifice the god expected. This horror, a divine being with a vampiric hunger for human hearts, offers one of the earliest mythological templates for what we might recognize today as a vampire, the death bat across cultures. Although the death bat's clearest identity comes from the Maya as Kamisats, similar figures appear throughout the ancient world. In Aztec mythology, for example, bats were associated with death, night, and sacrifice. The Aztec underworld, Mictlan, was a place filled with monsters that devoured souls, and bats were said to serve Mictlantecutli, the god of death. In the Andean world, bats were often seen as messengers of the underworld. The Chavin culture portrayed bats in funerary art, associating them with transformation and the afterlife. In other regions, bats were feared not only for their strange, silent flight, but for their role as omens, warnings of disaster, sickness, or death. The idea of a bat-faced god, one who lives in caves, emerges at night and drinks blood, is not limited to Mesoamerica. In some West African legends, night spirits or shadow eaters are described as winged creatures who can peel souls from bodies. In Melanesian mythology, certain ancestral spirits are said to fly at night and drink blood, appearing in the form of massive bats or birds. These cross-cultural resonances suggest something deeply primal in the bat's image, a creature of the dark, one that violates the barrier between life and death, day and night. Symbolism, the face of fear. Why a bat? Why not a jaguar, a snake, or a hawk? In the ancient world, bats were uncanny. They had wings like birds but were mammals. They slept upside down in caves. They appeared at dusk and vanished at dawn. They were neither one thing nor another, existing in a liminal space, much like death itself. In many cultures, liminal beings, those that cross boundaries, are feared as sacred or dangerous. Bats, in this way, became symbols of transformation, death, and the night's unknown terror. The death bat is the perfect fusion of divine mystery and primal fear. His face is terrifying not because it is monstrous in the sense of dragons or giants, but because it is recognizably real. Fruit bats, vampire bats, and flying foxes were known to indigenous people. Their eerie chirps, leathery wings, and glowing eyes inspired dread. The god's anthropomorphic bat face would have been interpreted as a supernatural distortion of something already feared. From myth to modern horror, the vampire legacy. The death bat's myth didn't fade with the fall of Maya civilization. Instead, it evolved, seeping into Western consciousness through colonial records, oral legends, and eventually pop culture. Spanish conquerors recorded tales of bat gods, interpreting them through the lens of Christianity, equating them with demons and devils. Later, when vampire bats were discovered in the Americas, European imaginations ran wild. Bats that drank blood confirmed ancient fears. Gothic fiction of the 18th and 19th centuries began linking bats with vampires, first in folklore then in literature. Bram Stoker's Dracula famously turned into a bat. The symbol stuck. Thanks for watching our deep dive into the 10 monsters of myth that shaped the darkest legends of horror. These terrifying creatures remind us how ancient fears still live on in stories, movies, and nightmares today. If you enjoyed exploring these chilling myths, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a journey into the unknown. Share your favorite monster or horror legend in the comments. We love hearing your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and remember, sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones born from our own imagination.